Hello, welcome back to Animated Literacy. This is lesson number 59 from the Story Song and Action Book. In our last lesson, we learned about Old Joe Crow and how when he couldn't fly fast as the young crows any longer, he became the best crow at rowing. So we think about Old Joe Crow rowing his boat home. Take hold of the oars of his boat and pull back and give a great big groan while we make his sound and go, "Oh!" Now, in our last lesson, we talked about ways that you can learn the patterns we need to spell our sounds. And this is what divides, in many cases, our good readers from our not so good readers. That most good readers know these spelling patterns. Many poor readers don't know them. So if we're going to be a good reader, you've got to know these patterns. But if we just sit and try to memorize the patterns, that's pretty boring. And it doesn't work very well. Marion Diamond, who was a brain scientist that learned how to grow a better brain, told us that when you're bored, your brain gets smaller. When you're not bored and you're excited and you're challenging your brain gets bigger. So that's what we want to do. And we talked about in our last lesson that another brain scientist named Dr. Hebb learned that if you can get your many areas of your brain to be active at the same time, then all those areas that learn together remember together. They get wired together. Then later, if any one of those areas is activated, all the areas that learned with it light up. So the best way to learn these sounds and make them interesting is by surrounding them with lots of activities that engage many areas of the brain. Then later, you see that letter pattern, and you don't just see OA, you see Old Joe Crow in your mind. You think about Old Joe Crow's story. You think about Old Joe Crow's song. And you remember drawing your picture of Old Joe Crow. And drawing is really powerful for memory because memory works a lot on emotion. And if you feel really good about something, then you tend to remember it. And because most people think they can't draw, as soon as you learn how to draw something, you feel good about it and you remember that. So the arts are really powerful in memory and in brain building. And Marion Diamond tells that when she was very old, she and her husband, Dr. Scheibel, who was also a brain scientist, went and took art classes because art is a really good way to keep your brain healthy and growing. And that art can be drawing, or I practice my drawing and I practice banjo and all of these kinds of art forms to help my brain stay healthy and to keep growing. So after we learned Old Joe Crow, we took and we put his color picture onto our chart. So here is Old Joe Crow. And now you can see that many of the characters we're going to be learning now don't use a single letter for their sound, but they use a letter pattern. So it's important that we use as many parts of the brain as we possibly can while we're learning those so that we can remember those letter patterns really well. So we're going to start out by drawing a picture of a crow. So I want you to think about Old Joe Crow's story and his song, and we'll give a go here at drawing a crow. Now, when I'm drawing, I don't always like my drawings. I'm not an artist. And you can tell by my drawings that I'm not an artist, but I really like drawing. It's a lot of fun. And one of the great things about drawing is if you don't like it, you can throw it away and draw it again. And you can keep drawing it again and again and again until you end up liking it. So let's see, maybe I'll end up liking this and maybe it'll be one that I'll do over again. So let's draw an eye with a circle and then give it a little dot for its pupil. Then I'm going to make an angle line pointing back to it. Then I'm going to make a longer angle line for my crow's beak. So there's the beak for my crow. And then I'm going to put a little line up here at the dot because they have a little spot on their beak. Then I'm going to take and start the head. So to start the head, I'm going to take this line and I'm just kind of going to extend it over the top of the eye. Then I'm going to come way back and out. Then I'm going to come back in, and here we're going to draw its feathers for its wing, back out, back in, and we'll go back out again, only this time I'm going to give it a little square shape, and back in and curl around for my crow's wing. Now we're going to finish the chest of the crow and down to the body. So we're going to come out here, back like this, and then curl back around. Now that ended up looking a little bit more like a goose than a crow, so I'll probably go back after this lesson and draw that again and see if I can get it to look more crow-like. So that means I'll need to look at more pictures again of crows. So now we'll come down for its legs. So I'll put 2 lines like this, and some little angle lines here at the bottom. 2 lines like this. Some little angle lines at the bottom. And so even though it didn't end up looking a lot like a crow, I was still going to call it a crow today. So everybody say the word crow. Go, crow. What do you hear first in crow? C for catching. So I'm going to put a C up here with a curved line. What do you hear next in crow? Crow. R for riding. What do you hear last in crow? Crow. Now I can use a little bit of the song to help me remember that letter pattern. So I'm going to sing this. And O-W spells O in row and crow, and now if I use my muscles, I'll remember it even better. And O-W spells O in row and crow, and O-W spells O in row and crow. So how are we going to spell Old Joe Crow sound? O-W. O-W, and we can say that over and over again. And when I teach this way, my students can go home for vacation and come back and still remember what we did. When I didn't teach this way, they'd go home for vacations and they'd come back and forget everything we did. So now we're going to draw something that rhymes with crow, because rhyming also is brain friendly. It helps us remember. This time we'll do a mystery draw. I won't tell you what we're drawing, so see if you can figure it out. I'm going to start with a circle, so put a circle on your page. And I'm going to come down with a line and put a W at the bottom, and then come back up. Can you guess what it is yet? Now come down, make 2 angle lines again like a W, and come back up. Now I'm going to take from here and make a big curve coming around. Come here in a big curve, and then put a curve inside each one. What does that look like we drew a picture of? A bow. And bow rhymes with crow because they both end with O. Say the first sound in bow. Bow. What do you hear? B. B for bowing, so make your straight line and then your circle. Bow. O. And O-W spells O in row and crow, and it also spells O in bow. So put your O-W, tie your string to your bow. Now for our next one, we're going to draw a picture of a boat. And in our last lesson, we looked at this book called If I Had a Big Blue Boat from Skybrary. And so after the lesson, I went and I made a list of all the adjectives and all the verbs I could find in that book. So now I've got another list of adjectives and verbs that I can use in my drawing and my labeling lessons. So we're going to draw a picture of a little boat here. So let's come over here next to the crow, and I'm going to just make a little gentle curved line. Then I'm going to make a short straight line down, or to the other side and angle in a little bit with a short straight line. And then I'm going to connect those two with another line. Now we're going to make a sailboat this time. So I'm going to make a tall mast here to hold the sail with a rectangle. Then I'm going to come back down here, make a curve, stop when I get to the rectangle, skip over the top of it and make another curve, and then do the same thing inside with another curve like this. Now there's my boat and there's my mast. What does it need to have? It has to have a sail. So I'm going to come down like this with an angle and back in. And there's my little tiny sailboat. So everybody say, boat. What do you hear first? B. B for bowing. Make your straight line and then your circle. Boat. Now I can go back to my song again and sing this. O-A spells long O in boat. So that's part of Old Joe Crow's song. Sing that with me. O-A, and now if we add our muscles, then we're going to remember it even better because we're using more of our brain. O-A spells long O in boat. Again. O-A spells long O in boat. So how are we going to spell Old Joe Crow's sound here? We're going to use the letter pattern O, A. What do you hear last in boat? Boat, boat. T for Timmy Tiger tickling. And there's my boat. Now we need something to rhyme with boat. Here's an old story that many of you might already know. If you don't, this is a good one to read. And it's called The Three Billy Goats Gruff. And these poor billy goats want to get across this bridge, but there's this mean troll that lives under it who won't let them cross his bridge. So you can read that story to find out what the billy goats do to finally get across the bridge. So we're going to draw a picture of a goat because goat rhymes with boat. So we're going to start our goat up here with two circles for eyes. Then I'm going to put a dot in each circle for a pupil. So there's my goat's eyes. Now goats have horns, and the horns on goats are different from the antlers on moose because they keep their horns all through their life. They don't shed their horns like a moose does. So 2 points there for my horns, and I can put some little curves inside and then connect them with a line. Now we're going to start the face. So I'm going to come around this eye like this. Then I'm going to come around this eye like this. Then I'm going to give it an ear coming out this side. And a long ear coming out this side with a line in the middle. Now we're going to come down to the chin. So I'm going to come straight down and I'm going to make a nice big dot down here. Then I'm going to go from the bottom of my dot up and connect to this line. Go from the bottom of my dot and connect up to this line. Now we need the goat's body. And goats have this shaggy hair, so I'm just going to make some kind of zigzag lines coming down. Then I'm going to come back over here to next to its head and just above its ear. I'm going to make some more zigzag lines coming out for all of his hair. And we'll zigzag down. And now we need some legs. So I'm going to give him a rectangle here for a leg. A straight line for a hoof. I'll come down at an angle. Come out and up for another hoof. Then I'll come over here for his back hooves. And here's another rectangle coming down for a hoof, and then another one, so he's got his 4 legs. And now we need his tummy, so we'll just connect across here, and then a tail. So for his tail we're going to angle down, make a curve down like this, and then curve back up. So what did we draw a picture of this time? Goat. Everybody say goat, goat. What do you hear first? G. G for gliding. So your circle and your hook. What do you hear next? Goat. And this is just like in boat. O-A spells long O in boat. So now we've got go. Now what are we going to put on the end? Goat. Goat. T for tickling. Now there's a part of a goat that also rhymes with boat. What is he wearing here? A goat has a furry coat. So we're going to write coat now. Now this time I think I'll write the rhyme first. The rhyme, remember, always starts with a vowel. And the rhyme in goat is oat. So there's my O, and then a T at the end. So what does that spell? Oat. And you might have oatmeal for breakfast, or you might have Cheerios that's made out of oats. And you have the word oat in both goat and coat. So now to start it, what does coat start with? Coat. Coat. C for crunching. So now let's put our circle around coat and tie the string to the goat's coat. So now we've got boat, goat, coat. Now another pattern that's used a lot to spell Old Joe Crow sound is this one. And this pattern has a hole in the middle. So there's an O, and then we're going to leave a space and put an E at the end. So I call that either O blank E or O space E, and it goes oh, and then it has something in the middle. So this time we're going to put an N in the middle. So if we have own, what does that say? Own. Now we drew a picture of a goat. Some people are allergic to cow's milk, but they're not allergic to goat's milk. So you can make some of the same things out of goat's milk that you make out of cow's milk, but people who can't have cow's milk can have the product from goat's milk. And what we're going to do here starts with a C for crazy camel. So if we put that together, what do we have? Own. Again, cone. And so we're going to draw a picture of a cone. Let's see what kind of cone we're going to draw. Here's an angle line coming down. Then we'll make just a little bit of a wavy line there. And then some diagonal lines. And now we're going to put the part that would be made out of goat's milk on top. So what does that look like? An ice cream cone. So let's put our circle around cone and tie it to the cone. Now, the next one is something that I don't like to chew on, but my dog likes to chew on, and it looks like this, and it rhymes with cone. So let's see if we can figure it out. Let's start with a C, and then come back and put another C on top of it, so it looks like that. Then make a straight line out, and a straight line out. Then we'll make a backward C, and then another one. So what did we draw a picture of this time? A bone. And bone rhymes with cone because they both have the same rhyme. So let's do our rhyme first. Let's put our O, put our E at the end. So that says O. Put the N in the middle, and now it says own. And what do we need on the front? B. For bowing. So there's my bone. Now we're going to do one more thing. And this is one of my favorites. Ruth Brown wrote a book called Toad. And this is a really funny story. And it starts out with some really good adjectives. And so it goes like this at the front. It says, "This is the tale of a toad." Now it starts out with some pretty horrible words to describe this toad. A muddy toad, a mucky toad, a clammy, sticky, gooey toad. So look at this toad. Not a very great looking animal, and it keeps going like that. Odorous, oozing, foul and filthy, and dripping with venomous fluid. Well, it keeps describing this toad in horrible ways and drawing pictures of it in horrible ways. And what do you think is going to happen to that toad? Eventually in the book, the toad meets up with a monster who puts the toad in its mouth and tries to eat it. But what do you think that monster is going to think about the taste of that toad? What do you think the monster is going to say? Yuck! Yells the monster, and he spits out the toad. Well, how do you think the toad feels about being spit out? Now he's a happy toad, a confident toad, And he enjoys that the monster didn't eat him. So let's draw a picture of a toad now. I'm going to start here with 2 circles for eyes. Then I'm going to put a dot at the top of each circle for the pupil. Then I'm going to connect them with a curve and make a curve all the way around here. And I'll give my toad a smile. Now it's almost going to look like my toad is on a stick, or it could be a tie hanging down. So I'll make a stick hanging down. Then I'm going to give him a leg by coming down and giving him some feet here. Then I'll do the same thing on the other side. Then I'm going to come out from here, around and back up with a foot. Make a curvy line like that. Do the same thing on the other side. Go out, in, out. His little foot. And there's a toad. Everybody say, toad. What do you hear first? T. T for tickling. What do you hear next? O. And we're going to do an O and an A again for that pattern. And what do you hear last in toad? Toad. D for dancing. Now we're going to rhyme with toad. So let's see if you can guess what I'm drawing. I'm going to make us 2 straight lines out here and put some dots. Then I'm going to skip over the top of the toad and make 2 lines kind of converging, starting to come together. And what does that look like? His toad looks like he's in the middle of what? The road. Everybody say road. R, R for riding. What's the next sound? Road. O-A. For our long O pattern again. Road. And a D at the end. Well, I made that one a little too tall, so I'll just scribble that out. So there's our road. Now we're going to put our crow that we drew into a story. So where would you find a crow? A lot of times you find crows on farms, but farmers aren't very happy about that because they eat the farmers' crops. So they put up these scarecrows to try to scare the crows out of the farm fields. So we have a song about a farm like that. So here's Down on Grandpa's Farm.
Oh, we run away on our way to Grandpa's farm. Oh, we run away on our way to Grandpa's farm. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a woolly black sheep. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a woolly black sheep. The sheep, it makes a sound like this, bah. The sheep, it makes a sound like this, bah.
Well, in that verse, we had a woolly black sheep on the farm. This time we're going to have a crow on the farm. So let's write the word crow in our first circle here. What's the first sound in crow? K. C for catching. What's the next sound in crow? Krrr. R for riding. And what's the last sound in crow? Crow. O-W spells O in row and crow. So there's that little verse you can sing again. So there's my word crow. Now we're going to learn another pattern for Old Joe Crow's sound. Old Joe Crow can spell his sound with an O and an L. So put an O and an L on your page. And that says ole. Ole. Well, what do you think starts with ole? If I put a D on the end, what do I have? Old. Down on Grandpa's farm there is an. Now here's an A, but because this starts with a vowel, we don't say A, we say an. So put an N after your vowel there. Down on Grandpa's farm there is an old. Now we're going to use another word that has this in it. So write old. That's going to be the rhyme for the word. So write old again, only this time we're going to put a B on the front of it. So if we put a B there, now we've got B, old. What does that say? Bold. What does bold mean? It means brave. Well, the farmer's putting out the scarecrows and he's trying to get rid of the crows, but the crows are still coming, so they're very bold crows. Down on Grandpa's farm there is an old, bold crow. The crow. So now we need the word crow again, so just copy the word crow from over here. The crow It makes us sound like this. Crows go caw, caw. And caw starts with a C, so put your C. And then it has another way to spell Ollie Ostrich's sound, and one of the ways he can spell it is with an A and a W. So put AW. So now let's sing the song together. Ready? Down on Grandpa's farm there is an old bold crow. The crow, it makes us sound like this. Caw, caw. The crow, it makes us sound like this. Caw, caw. So now what are you going to need in your picture up here? You're going to need to have a bold crow, so you need to draw a crow again. Where does the crow need to be? On the farm. Whose farm is it? Grandpa. So you need Grandpa in your picture. So after the lesson today, I'll finish my picture up here, and I want you to finish your picture, and then we can compare pictures in our next lesson. So I hope you enjoyed drawing and labeling with words that have Old Joe Crow sound. And in our next lesson, we'll learn a new character so we can do more drawing and labeling and learn lots more words. So I hope to see you then for the next lesson.